Hello there. My name is Gregory Arabian. I'm a major in the United States Air Force, honorably separated and honorably discharged. And I'm the oral history director for Post 41 AMVETS, the Corporal Paul S. Marsubian Post in Watertown, Massachusetts. And today, we're here to take the oral history of one of our comrades, George Z Toomajanian of Belmont, Massachusetts. Is that right, George?
That's right.
Okay. And what we're going to do is carry on an informal conversation and ask George to come up with any of his reminiscences and feelings and reflections of his is it 2 years in the service?
2 years in the service.
2 years in the service.
Voluntary draft.
And before we do that, I'm going to leave the scene and zoom in on George so that he can tell us what we call his veteran's story. It is hoped that the information contained in these tapes, which will be made public to the Library of Congress, hopefully to the Watertown Library and other agencies, will provide information and inspiration to future generations in their quest for truth and justice and the security of the United States and the morale of our armed forces. So with that, George, I'll take my questions and we'll talk to you informally. Okay, George, you say that you were born in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Is that correct?
That's right.
And what's your father's name?
George Toomajanian. Armenian name Kevork.
Kevork. And your mother's name?
Vera Toomajanian. Vera Varsanik Toomajanian.
And where were they born?
My father was in Khatput, Turkey, and my mother somewhere in Armenia.
Okay. And they met in?
They met in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They came by right after the Turkish War.
Mm-hmm. That was after the genocide of 1915?
15 and then 19. I think there was one in 17 too.
Yes,
My mother brought over soldiers too from the World War over there.
She did?
Right.
Wonderful.
That's how she came to this country.
Tell me about it.
She was escorting soldiers over here, and then when she got here, she just decided to stay from Greece.
Okay, what was her position as an escort to the troops?
That I don't know. She never spoke about it. All I know is she was a nurse, and that's how she came here.
So she must have been with the Red Cross.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then she came over here and met your father?
My father, and they married and settled in Cambridge.
Mm-hmm. And so you were born and brought up in Cambridge?
Cambridge, yeah.
And did you attend the Cambridge schools?
Cambridge Grammar School and High School, Cambridge High and Latin.
And when did you graduate?
In 1955, and then right after that, when I graduated, I enlisted in the service, volunteered for the draft.
Did you have any special training in high school, any capabilities for the service?
No, no training.
Just plain old high school?
Plain old high school diploma.
And was everybody enlisting during that period of time?
They were enlisting before me. A lot of the students left in January to go in for the Korean War, and then the Korean War ended, I think it was in April. Mm-hmm. That's when the truce was signed, in 1955.
So you enlisted rather than be drafted?
Well, no, I went up and I asked for the voluntary draft.
The voluntary draft?
They drafted me right in, right after school.
And where was that?
In Cambridge, City Hall.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And you were single at the time?
Single, and yeah.
All right.
Single, yeah.
And where did you do your paperwork?
Cambridge, we were sent to Fort Dix down to Fort Knox in Louisville, Kentucky. Took the basic training down there.
What did you do at Fort Dix?
We were processing, and the group that I was with left, and for some reason they had left me there. My paperwork had never come in from Cambridge, from the City Hall.
Okay.
So I stayed there about an extra 3 weeks until they found my paperwork. Then I was shipped from there to
Did you do any
Fort
boot
Knox.
training at Dix, or was it just paperwork?
Just KP work, that's all.
KP and uniforms?
Cleaning and uniforms and stuff like that.
Okay. And this was what time of the year?
In the summer. of
And did they-
1955.
Did they provide you with summer uniforms?
Summer uniforms, short sleeve shirts.
Okay,
In those days, we still had the Ike jackets for the winter.
okay.
Yeah.
So you went from Dix to where?
Fort Knox in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's when we took our training. And I think it was 16 weeks of training down there on tanks and boot camp.
Is this Fort Knox where all the gold is?
All the gold.
So you were there,
Louisville, right?
really?
And from
So you
there,
trained around that place?
that's right on the base there.
And it was a tank unit?
It was a tank unit. Actually, we were trained by the 82nd Airborne Division. They were training us.
And what kind of tanks?
Any aircraft, 42 millimeter tanks, double barrel guns.
These were tanks
Tanks.
that had anti-aircraft guns on them?
Guns on top. The turret would turn around,
All right.
and each gun would propel this way.
Did they have a big gun in the center
No,
for anti-tank?
no, that was the other, that was the armored one. That was different. These were anti-aircraft airplanes.
Well, were they Sherman tanks or?
No, the Sherman tanks was another division.
What kind of tanks did you have?
Anti-aircraft tanks.
Yeah, but did they have a name?
No, they didn't. They just said anti-aircraft.
Anti-aircraft. All right. How did you feel when you got to Knox? Fort Knox?
Different, strange, meeting other people, all the parts of the United States, very different.
Many New Englanders there?
I had a few that came up, then they got separated into other parts of the division.
But mostly Southerners, I'll bet.
Mostly Southerners. They didn't know what an Armenian was.
Right. And did
And
they
I-
have a Southern accent?
Yeah, and I really got educated down there,
Really?
really, yeah.
And tell us what your training was like down in Fort Knox.
Early in the morning, get up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, start running, carrying the weapons.
What kind of weapons?
M3 rifle,
M3?
yeah,
Most of the people I've interviewed say they have M1 rifles.
M3.
Okay. How good were you at it?
I was an expert shooter.
Did you get a sharpshooter's medal?
I got a sharpshooter's medal for that.
Where was that? At Knox, Fort
At
Knox?
Fort Knox. Right,
Okay.
Right, we went down there.
All
Then we
right.
went to Camp Stewart for more training.
So what else did you do at Knox besides run and carry weapons?
We went on bivouacs and things like that down there, training with the guns.
What would
Shooting.
describe a bivouac? What is a
We'd
bivouac?
go out for a couple of days. And we'd camp overnight, and then we'd have false drills. And drive the tanks through the woods and everything, and then just start on the firing range, firing them, testing them.
Were you actually in the tank?
Yes, I was.
What was your position?
I was the driver, and I was a gunfighter. Both.
How do you drive one of those things?
You're in the turret down in the bottom, one head sticking up, and there's an assistant driver there, and you've got the, it's like a bar, and you're just moving the tank this way, that way.
You're driving the
I'm
tank?
driving the tank.
And at the same time, you're in the turret?
No, I'm down in the hole.
In the hole.
Where the driver's seat is.
Okay.
And when I'm not driving, I used to go up into the turret, and someone else would drive.
How do you see where you're going?
When I'm in the, you could either sit up, or when you close it, there's a bump in the thing there, the latch, and you can see through the latch.
Is it
A hole
open?
about this big, yeah, and you could see right through.
So you know where you're
You
going?
know just where you're going.
Is anybody telling you which way to turn, which...
No, we used to follow the convoy, and then Sergeant Peterson was in charge. He'd tell us. I have a story later on to tell you about him.
Okay, feel free.
Yeah.
And were you considered to be the tank commander
Of my tank,
of your tank?
the M42 tank, yeah,
M42?
yeah.
And who would be the commander of the group of tanks that you were involved with?
I had a Sergeant Peterson, and then there was a captain, I forget his name. He was a Spanish fella. He was in charge of the whole company.
How many tanks were in this group?
Let's see, D Company, I think we had about 14 tanks.
You must have had a lot of room to maneuver in.
Right. Right.
Was there some kind of instruction that you took to drive this tank?
When we first got down there, they were showing us, Sergeant Peterson showed us. He had his group of men. There was, I think, 6 men, 5 men to a tank. And he had that group, he would take us out, and another group would go with someone else.
And was it similar to driving an automobile?
No. Completely different. Because when you turn the tank, the whole tank would be going straight, and all of a sudden, if you make a left-hand turn, the whole thing would just turn like this.
So the treads would make it
The
turn?
treads, that's right. Yeah, it was exciting.
How about the acceleration?
We can go very fast.
What did you use for it? Was there a gas pedal?
There
or-
was a gas pedal down there, and you just keep pedaling on the gas, and you just move right along. But
And-
you got to be careful hitting bumps and this and that.
And brakes?
There were brakes.
And you had lights?
We had lights on them, lights. At nights when we used to go bivouacking, we used to sleep right in there where the shells used to be kept.
How many shells did you have in these things? When you say shells, you're talking about anti-aircraft shells?
Anti-aircraft shells, yeah.
What size? 50 millimeter? Were they
I
50?
don't know, they were about this long and this thick. And we just slide them in. Just slide them in.
Okay. And, but you never ran out of ammunition, I take it?
No.
You always
We
had
always
good
had
ammo?
enough when we went
You did?
bivouacking, always.
Okay. What was particularly exciting about your tank? You said you enjoyed it.
Well, it was what a big piece of metal like that can do, and then how those guns could operate. I mean, they just wouldn't both shoot. It would go this way, this way, this way.
One
this
after
way.
another.
One after another.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Sometimes we see those
then-
guns on the sides of ships shooting at
Right,
the aircraft.
right. It's quite the thing.
So how did you drive and shoot the guns at the same time?
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
While I was driving, someone was up in the turret.
I see.
But 90% of the shooting is usually done when the tank has stopped, because the turret can move around.
Uh-huh.
See, that's the whole thing. It can make a complete circle.
Doesn't that make the tank vulnerable? You're shooting
At
from... the-
times, yeah,
Yeah.
at times.
Okay. So you trained here at Knox with the tanks, but did you do more riding in tanks than you did walking and running?
No, we did a lot of walking, and then we went down to Camp Stewart in Georgia for more extensive training
What did you do down there?
to handle the tanks even better, and we practiced more shooting, and that's when we were trained with the 82nd Airborne Division, because they were part of our group.
They're a paratrooper group.
Paratroopers, right. Right.
And how did the tank boys work with paratroopers?
Great, wonderful.
What was the connection? Would
Well,
they follow you?
They were following us, they were showing us how to shoot and combat, if we had combated with anybody.
So you were leading the
handle that
infantry, so to speak?
Yeah,
And at Fort Stewart, now where's that?
Camp Stewart, down in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia.
How about the heat? Was it
Hot.
hot down there?
Very, very hot, it was different, hot.
And you had no air conditioning in the tank?
No air conditioning in those tanks, nothing.
And the electronics were basic?
Oh, just regular,
Yeah. Did you have any
nothing like now.
Did you have any breakdown of your equipment?
At times, there were breakdowns, but my tank was good. No breakdown of mine.
You had good communication with each other?
Good communication, good teamwork. We had a good teamwork.
Have you ever met with any of your boys after you got out?
After I got out of the service, about 5 years later, I did meet someone. Then I did meet someone one day. He hollered out to me, "Hey, Toomajanian, what are you doing?" And I was in Oakley Spa, Arsene and Arsenian's store.
Ah, yes.
And this is maybe 7 years after I got out of the service. And he says, "You remember the time when I came to France, because you were AWOL, and I had to bring you back?"
Uh-huh.
I says, "I remember." And he says, "I brought you," he was the chief of police in Belmont, Bob Shea.
Oh, really? So he was with you?
He was an A company.
Uh-huh.
In my, we had A, B, C, and D.
And you were a D
57.
company, I
I
guess.
was
huh?
D.
Yeah, yeah.
And A company was the company that had the fellas that went after men with AWOL and everything. And Bob Shea was one of the guys. He ends up being chief of police in Belmont.
And where was he from at that time?
He was from Cambridge, too.
So he recognized you when he had to go after you.
He was there just a little before me, and he joined us there, and he remembered me. He remembered me, yeah.
Did you have any fellow Armenians anywhere
No
around there?
Armenians, and when I was down in Georgia, I tried to meet some Armenians, and I found one Armenian name, and this fella treated us so well. He owned a peanut factory. But other than that, you ask any Southerner, they didn't even know what an Armenian was then.
I know.
I kept telling the people I'm Armenian, and they kept thinking I kept saying I was a mean one. A mean one. I says, I'm Armenian. And I used to tell them about Noah's Ark ship.
Oh, yes.
We were the first Christian nation in the world.
Yes.
If anyone knew their Bible, they knew then what we were.
Did you receive any medals or citations for your work in the tank corps? Did you recall?
No,
or
that
did
I
your
don't.
unit receive any citations?
We won a few medals, but for what, I don't know, cleanliness and this and that, and shooting. And then after our training from there, that's when we were shipped to Germany.
Did you stay in touch with your family while you were in the service?
Yes, I did, because I had a sick father, and I had to keep my mother in touch with her.
And between the time that you went into the service and the time you went overseas, did you have an opportunity to come back home?
No.
You didn't?
No.
But you kept in touch with telephone and...
Telephone, I wrote a lot. Yeah.
Okay. How did your parents take your going into the voluntary draft? Did they encourage you?
No, my mother didn't encourage me, but I had a reason for doing it. And I wanted, because I was supporting 6 people. My dad was sick in the hospital, and he had been there for almost 20 years. So I was the total means of support, and I felt if I went in, they were dependent on me, and that's how I got some extra money to support them.
You mean you were entitled to dependency money from the
Right.
Army to help your father?
Right.
That wasn't
Yeah.
much, was it?
No, but it helped.
But it was better than
Then nothing.
if you had gone out and got a job on your own.
Right.
I see.
Well, the reason I didn't get the job is I wanted to get the service over with, because I knew someday I would be drafted.
Okay. So rather than wait to have them come after you, you went after them.
I just went right in, right.
Right. It was kind of a forced voluntary act on your part. Did you have an opportunity to be entertained by anybody during your stay in the service, whether it was stateside or in Germany?
When I was in Germany, I found out my mother had a brother in France. And what I did was I took a leave while I was in Germany. And I went to France to visit him, and then on my way back from Paris, back to Frankfurt, Germany, I took sick, and I collapsed at the train station. That's when this police officer, I'll tell you now, they took me to the American Hospital of Paris. And I was just losing weight, and I was there for about 3 weeks, very sick. And they had listed me as AWOL. My uncle did not know how to get in touch with my outfit or anything, because he didn't know anything about the service.
And the hospital didn't do anything
No,
for
the
you?
hospital didn't do a thing. And then finally, someone came in and asked questions, and they had called my place up at Frankfurt, Germany, and told them where I was. And that's when they said, well, we got him listed as AWOL. We didn't know he was sick. And that's
Okay.
when Bob Shea,
That's
that's
when
how I
Bob-
met Bob Shea. He came in, but everything was straightened out when I got back, because the paperwork was there, and they knew I was in the hospital sick.
Okay. Well, let's pick up from Camp Stewart. From Camp Stewart, you went overseas.
And no, we were shipped back to Kentucky. We stayed in Kentucky 2 months. Then we were shipped up to New Jersey, and from New Jersey we took a ship over to Bremerhaven, Germany.
Is that Fort Dix?
Fort Dix, I think, yeah, we stayed there and then we were shipped to
Yeah.
the coastline.
So you went to Bremerhaven?
Bremerhaven, Germany. Took
What-
us 6 days to get there by ship.
How'd you get there?
By ship.
What kind of ship?
Oh, troop ship. That's what it was. Everyone's sleeping on top of each other.
Was it an LST or
No, I don't-
LCI, whatever it
That I
might be?
don't know, but
Yeah.
it was a big troop ship.
Wasn't it the Queen Mary or
Then
anything?
there were Marines on there and everything.
You say the accommodations were tight?
Tight, our tanks were on the ship, everything was on the ship. We had everything.
And any idea how many people it took? How many troops were on that ship?
I think it took 3 ships to take the whole division. The whole 3rd Armored Division went over.
And you were in the 3rd Armored Division.
Yeah.
Did you have to take turns sleeping?
No, we each had our bunks, one on top of another. That
Yep.
was the year where the big hurricane came in, we went over.
Which one?
1956, was it?
Was that Hurricane Carol?
Carol, I think?
Yes, yes, yes. You must have felt great there.
Oh, bumpy, rocky, but it was nice. Then when we pulled into Germany, we just couldn't believe how many brick buildings there were. I always thought wooden buildings would be there, but everything's made out of
Yeah.
cement and brick.
Yeah.
And from there, we got shipped over by trucks. We went over to Frankfurt, Germany, and from Frankfurt, we were stationed outside a little town called Hanau, Germany, and that's where we were.
Tell me, what did you think of Bremerhaven, or how did it strike you when you first landed? What
I
did you
was
think?
impressed.
You were?
I could not believe from World War II how that area was built up, because I had seen pictures of Germany during World War II as a kid and as I grew up, but I could not believe how nice it was.
Pretty cleaned up?
Cleaned, beautiful,
Right.
nice
right.
buildings. Yeah.
And how were the people?
People were friendly. I think that the people in the smaller towns were much more friendlier. We
Really?
worked with them, yeah, I did. I worked with them and everything. And
Did they accepted you?
they accepted us. They accepted us.
And did you have much time to get amongst the people?
I did. I did on my own time at night. I used to go work with the farmers and the oxen, work on the fields and everything. with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you do? Help them to cultivate
Well,
their
they
fields?
knew I was green, so the farmer, he says, I want you to take this oxen with this big barrel and walk the field and just keep pulling this, not knowing it was all cow manure and horse manure mixed with water. I stunk. That was my first experience on a farm.
You didn't have to do this.
No, I just went and did it, just get to know the people and everything. They were nice in the town.
You did?
We had a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
A lot of fun.
Did you keep a personal diary?
No, no.
You never took any photographs of these
I have
people?
some photographs, but not that many at home.
Maybe we can add them to the end of this, video at some future time. Now, from Bremerhaven, where did you?
We
You went to
to
Frankfurt?
Frankfurt, but to a town outside of Frankfurt called Hanau.
Hanau.
Yeah, and that's where we were stationed, and that's where we did all our training. And then when we did for the maneuvers, we went over to Grafenwehr, which is near the Czechoslovakian border.
Now, when you went from one of these cities to another, did you actually drive your tanks in
We had our
convoy?
tanks. We had our tanks.
Used a lot of fuel.
A lot of fuel.
Yeah. And you had
A lot.
backup fuel tenders?
Fuel trucks and everything. Yeah.
All right. And so you ended up in
Hanau.
maneuvering in Hanau and near Czechoslovakia?
Well, we were in Hanau, but when we went, I think it was 50, 60 miles away, we went to Grafenwehr, where we went for maneuvers and everything. We stayed there 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and we patrolled the border, played chicken, coming down the hill with the Czechs and everything. It was fun.
Did you have any, you say play chicken, did you have any encounters with communists when you were there?
Well, they were on the
Communist
other
troops?
side of the line. You could see them. You
Really?
could see them way on the other side.
And how close did you get to them?
Pretty close. Pretty close.
And they weren't willing to move, and neither were you?
No, but
Yeah.
it was exciting, you know. We were always told, be careful, do not cross over the line, be hard to get your back, and this and that.
Was the line between our forces and their forces made pretty clear?
Pretty clear, yeah.
Was there a demarcation
There was a
zone?
demarcation zone and everything, yep. And then,
Did you have any opportunity to speak to these
no,
troops?
no,
Never had any opportunity to interact
no,
between them?
no,
You didn't exchange anything between
no,
them?
no.
It was real enemy.
Yeah, well, it was still like a real enemy. It was like enemy. And then at that time, when we were there, while we were there, that's when then we got ready for combat. That's when Abdul Nasser was shutting down the Suez Canal.
Yes.
And we were all combat ready. Our division was called up to go. 82nd was called up to go. And we were ready about a week. We were all set, just waiting for the word to go. Then Abdul Nasser made the settlement, and he didn't close the Suez Canal. I don't know if you remember that time.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think Anthony Eden was the prime minister, and I think President Eisenhower gave him either knuckle under or else.
That's the time, and we were all combat ready to go there. And that's when everyone was getting gun-ho. They said, oh, we're going to see action, but
They were anxious to
they
go.
were anxious to go. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
How do you,
And
tell me, how do you prepare to go into combat? How do you prepare to
Well-
face something like this?
Well, we had all our combat gear, duffel bags, everything all packed, weapons. We were issued ammunition. Tank was fully loaded, fully loaded.
And these would be loaded on a ship?
Well, we were ready at our base. Now, from there, I don't know if they were going to go by ship or how, but most likely it would be by ship to go over to the Suez Canal
I see.
or land that way towards Egypt.
So you did have...
Because we'd have to go around, come out and go through the Gibraltar
Oh,
to
yes.
the Mediterranean to get to Egypt. Yeah,
How did you feel when it was called off?
I was happy
You were.
because talking to the men that had been in Korea and some of the men that were in World War II, the stories that they told me, and they said, you don't want to see war. You don't want to see what happened in Korea, because the soldiers that trained us, or the older fellas that were there, the captains and the staff sergeants and everything, were in those wars, and they said, it's no joke. No joke at all.
All right. So, when did your service end after this? After this alert?
After this incident, that was in '56, I think. So I got out of the service in June or July of '57. And what we did was, we went still on maneuvers until, actually, we took a ship to come back.
You kept on practicing?
Kept on practicing. Yeah, we went to Grafenwehr, and that's where one of our friends, a fellow that I knew from Washington, D.C., lost his arm and his eye because the barrel got too hot and the shells went off and blew up
Oh,
in the turret, yeah.
So there were dangers in
Oh, yeah.
operating the tank.
If the M42 tank heated up, those shells would just go right off.
Really?
Yeah, they were firing too many at one time, that's the problem.
Really?
Yeah.
And what other dangers did you face there? What other problems did you have with the tank?
Other than that, nothing.
It was pretty fast?
Yeah, they were fast, they were fast. They were so fast, I'll tell you, because I remember one scene where we had the sergeant from New Jersey, Sergeant Peterson, Stuttery Pete we used to call him. And he would always say, in a 90 millimeter tank, now you know how long the barrels are in a 90 millimeter.
Yeah.
He was in front of me, and I was behind him, and he says, take a right turn. And I, from my driver's cab, was hollering, I said, don't take a sharp right, something's gonna happen. And in Germany, the streets are narrow. When he took a sharp right, he took the whole side of a building right off, and there were people sitting at the kitchen table eating. I could not believe it.
Really? Yeah.
That's how long a 90 millimeter tank is, the barrel of the gun there.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So some of you had to 90 millimeter guns, and some of you had anti-aircraft guns.
Right.
And did any of you have any different kinds of guns aboard?
No.
Yeah. And I take it that the 90 millimeter
Those
gun,
are the ones that can
they also had machine guns with them too.
Machine guns and everything,
Yeah. So we had and they were always on treads. They weren't
Everything was
wheels,
on treads, everything. And the cobblestone streets, everything was cobblestone.
And the public didn't...
They didn't say anything
say-
because the Army, whatever they damaged, they fixed.
Really? Okay. Now, following your service in '56, tell us, was it a matter of accumulating points that allowed you to end the service, or was it a matter of time? You were in for 2 years.
I was in for 2 years, then I was
At the
thinking...
end of the 2 years.
End of 2 years, I had left it open to re-enlist. I was thinking of re-enlisting and making it a 20-year career. But then when I came home, I had a 30-day leave. When I came home, my mother said, please do not go back.
So you came home from Germany.
So I came from Germany, landed in New Jersey, and from New Jersey, we were discharged and came home. And then I decided not to re-enlist, but I was going to re-enlist.
What kind of incentives did they give you?
Moved me up to corporal.
Oh, 2 stripes
Yeah.
instead of 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I could be with the same division. I'd be stationed down at Fort Knox in Louisville, Kentucky, because they all went back to Louisville.
All right. Any
And then from
bonuses?
then there was a small bonus, but not that much, you know. And one of the
Yeah.
sergeants that I knew, Master Sergeant, said, George, it's not worth coming back unless you do make a career out of it. It's worth it, which he was making a career out of it.
He was?
Yeah.
All right. But your parents told you not to?
My mother didn't want me to go back in. I said, it's fine.
Your father was in pretty tough shape?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you decided to be discharged.
Discharged, and I came home, I looked around, and then that's when I went into hairdressing.
Okay. Did you take advantage of any educational benefits?
No, I didn't.
Did you have them?
I had the GI Bill. I could have used anything out of that.
You could have used them.
I could have used it, but
Okay.
I wanted to get to work to support the family.
All right.
Help out.
Now, where did you go to hairdressing school?
I went to Dale Academy, owned by Mr. Conragan, a nice Armenian. And then from there, I just went to work in Brookline, Brighton, so I opened my own place.
What led you to hairdressing?
Hairdressing?
Did the service have anything to do with it?
No, because I used to tell the girls when I was single how to wear their hair, what to do, and this and that. And I said, let me try it and see. I always had a way of doing it.
All right. Now, there's one thing I didn't ask you, and that is about your accommodations and the food. We get varying reports with regard to the quality of the food from the time you were in till the time you got out. What is your opinion with regard to the quality of the food that you had?
I didn't like the food. I'm so used to Armenian food. That's why a couple of times I'd volunteer for KP duty and cook my own pilaf
Really?
and everything. That's why
They had rice?
they had rice, and I used to make my own pilaf.
Really?
Yeah, they liked it.
And when you say you volunteered for KP duty, you didn't do the cooking?
No, but when I worked in there, in the
Yeah.
kitchen, I got to know the people who cook, the cooks and all, and I said, let me make some pilaf, I'll show you how to make some pilaf and stuff, and that's how I got it, and that was another way of making extra money. I used to take people's KP duties, because they wanted the weekend off or something, I said, I'd take it,
Really?
yeah.
So you didn't go crazy over the food?
No,
No.
I did not like,
Bacon and eggs in the morning or anything else like that?
no,
No.
I just wasn't crazy about the food.
Were you at any time reduced to K rations?
Yes, out in the field,
And
always in the fields.
would that be when you were in
I
bivouac or when you're in Germany?
Yeah, Germany, we had
Czechos-
a lot of that, no. Food was not bad in Germany, but I still didn't like it. And then the K rations we always had in the fields.
What did the K ration consist of, if you recall?
I don't remember. The small cans, I remember about this size.
Crackers.
Hardly anything, crackers and
Yeah.
different things, yeah.
Kept you alive?
Yeah,
Just
that's
about?
it.
Okay.
Kept us going.
And so far as your accommodations are concerned, you had said that you use the tank sometimes to sleep
When
in the
we'd go
tank?
in the tanks, yeah, when we'd be camping out,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us would, especially in rainy days, you'd like to find a dry place instead of a tent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, these
Yeah.
tents that they gave you, did they have any built-in floors?
No.
They were
Just regular tent.
just regular tent, and you were on the
Small
ground.
tent, 2 people in a tent.
What kept you from actually sleeping on the ground? What was between you?
I don't remember if we had an air mattress or not, or a blanket. I really don't remember that part there.
And aboard ship, you say it was pretty tight when you were going
We had
from...
those, what do you call it, the nets? Hammocks.
Yeah, yeah. And, but when you arrived in Germany, were you able to sleep in barracks?
We had nice barracks, beautiful, beautiful, clean barracks, well-lit.
And who kept them up?
We did.
You didn't have any of the local people
No,
keeping them up?
no, no.
And these barracks, were they separate rooms, or?
No, I would say maybe 30 men, 15 and 15 on each side, one big room, open space with the trunks in the front.
And you had regular
No lockers,
inspections?
nothing, inspections, every single day, duty work, everything.
You kept them clean?
Keep them
Okay.
clean, shine the floors with a guy sitting in the blanket, swishing them back and forth.
Really?
No electric things. You had to put the guy in the blanket and
You put somebody in a blanket and you
just
swished them back and forth? And that,
And
and
that
that
would puff
polished?
the floor up and everything.
Who decided who was going to be in the blanket?
Well,
took
whoever
turns.
was working, whoever had the the duty to clean up the barracks.
I see. And so you were either in the field, or else you were on board a ship, or else you were in the barracks.
Right.
And I take it at Fort Dix you had barracks too?
Fort Dix, we had barracks, yeah.
Okay. And while you were overseas, you didn't have any entertainers like Bob Hope or anybody like
No,
that?
no.
So, is it fair to say that after you got out of the service, your days in the service were come to a pretty abrupt and sure end?
Right.
You were not interested in anything else military?
No, but if I had to, go in, I would have gone back in. If there was a war. If I had to, I would, because I owe it to this country.
Can you tell us whether the service affected your life in any way?
In some ways it did. It showed me how people in other parts of the country lived, especially down south.
Did you ever regret going into the
No,
service?
no, I enjoyed every minute of it. I enjoyed spit polishing the boots, dressing, polishing the brass, everything.
Were you, would you call it a maturing experience, a growing up
Yes,
experience?
growing,
Something
Very
that you wouldn't
much.
get in
Very
regular
much.
civilian life?
yeah, very much.
And did you have any problems getting along with your troops, your group?
No, I only had one incident. That was down in Fort Knox. And I always call the black person a Negro. That's the way.
That's the way we call them.
But at that time, the sergeant in there said to me, "Will you get Sergeant Kuhn for me?" I said, "Sure." So I just stood up there in the barracks, the little porch, and I hollered, I says, "Hey, Kuhn, get over here," not realizing what Kuhn meant, and I was calling a black guy.
Oh, God.
And
What happened?
he gave me the business.
Really?
He came up, and everyone said, "Uh-oh, you're in trouble." He made me cut a field of grass with a trenching shovel.
Really?
My hands were so sore. He says, "You'll never call a black man a coon again."
But his name was Kuhn.
But I should have said Sergeant Kuhn. I just said, "Hey, Kuhn, get over here." And you don't do that.
Oh, boy.
Not to a Southerner.
Yeah.
Because all the men that trained us were Southern men,
Yes.
Southerners.
Right.
And it was quite an experience. Quite
But
an
you didn't have any fisticuffs with him?
No.
Didn't get any fights with him? or
No,
anything?
no,
Yeah, yeah. All right. How do you feel about the service today?
I think the service is a good place for anyone to go. Anyone that wants to get to know more, really grow up, I think the service is this place. Especially, I know where I own the beauty salon, I see a lot of kids, they don't know what to do with their life. And I tell them, go in the service. If you hang around here, you're going to get in trouble. You're looking for trouble, hanging around with the wrong crowd. Go there and get the education from the service. You can go to college and everything. And so far, it has worked with 3 fellas that I know.
Really?
3 young kids that I knew would get in trouble, and the other 2 are in prison that I know
Really?
for armed robbery and all. And
That they didn't go into the
They
service?
didn't go in. These other 3 fellas come out straight, and it's made me feel so nice having them come and see me in their uniforms and everything.
Really?
They said thanks.
Really?
That meant a lot to me, yeah.
So, did you have any feelings of patriotism when you went into the service?
Yes.
Or did you just go in there because you knew you had to go?
No, I wanted to go in because I knew, I'm born, this is my country, and I love this country, and I wanted to protect it.
You were
No matter
more,
what I did, it was it, because I've seen the suffering my parents did coming from the old country.
did you feel that your service was in some way a payback for the benefits that the country gave to your parents?
Yes,
You did?
yeah.
Yeah. Did you consider yourself more American than Armenian?
Yeah, no, I'm American, more American, but I feel for my own army.
You appreciate your
My background.
heritage.
Yes, I do, very
Okay.
much.
All
I'm
right.
proud of being an army.
All right. You say that you never had any reunions.
No, I'm surprised, they never had it. And there was one fella, Cashman, who popped into my store, this is 20 years later, he said, "Hey, Toomajanian, how are you?" He says, "You remember me? D Company." I says, "Yeah, yeah." And he walked out of my store, and I've never seen him since. I don't know
Really?
if he was passing through or what, and I don't know how he ever found out where I was.
Really? That's
But I
marvelous.
do see Bob Shea a lot, police officer.
Have you ever gone to have you ever gone to Europe after that?
No, never been back to Europe, nowhere, no.
Do you have any desire to do that?
Someday I would like to. I'd like to go to the areas that I was at. I'd like to go down to Kentucky, Louisville, too.
Really?
Yeah, I was there when the Kentucky Derby was there. We all went. It was great. People in Louisville, very nice to the servicemen. Every church on Saturday nights, it was open. They served you food and everything. It was very good.
What about social activities when you were in the service?
I didn't do too much socializing.
No?
No.
No. Mostly you're with the unit.
I was with my unit, or I just stayed at the barracks. A lot of the guys went out drinking. I don't drink.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Women?
I like women, yeah. I go dancing once in a while.
But I mean,
Yeah.
when you were in the service, did you have an opportunity to
Oh,
mix
yeah.
with the...
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything I have not covered?
No, I think you've covered everything.
Is it pretty much?
Great, yeah.
I've gone through most of the information that we have here. 3rd Armored Division is a pretty prestigious division.
It is. That's Patton's division.
Patton's, yes, Patton was in the commander of the 3rd Army.
Yeah, that's right.
Right,
General Patton.
right. Okay, and we do have other members of this post that were with Patton. We saw John Benlian over there. He was the Patton's
Is
division,
that
World
right?
War II,
What
and some of the
what they
others.
did in World War II was
That was
something.
pretty tough.
Oof.
Okay,
The Spearhead Division.
all right.
Great job, Harry.
Harry!
Keep it down.
Okay.
Okay, George, if we have no further questions, I want to thank you for participating in this oral history project. And we're going to sign off now, hoping that the information that we've presented here would be of some benefit, information, or inspiration to those people who follow us. So this is Major Greg Arabian, Oral History Director of Post 41 AMVETS. The date, by the way, is Tuesday, October 7th.
7th.
And I want to thank you for participating
Thank you
in the project.
very, very much.
Okay, very good. That's it.
Ah, thanks.
Now,